equality index is a set of statistics that measures gender equality. But what is gender and what does gender equality mean? And again, what is a statistic? Because we are talking about statistics, we only consider women and men here, even if we recognize that gender goes beyond those binaries. Women in our societies are discriminated against. That's why we seek to achieve the gender equality objective. How do we do that? What kind of equality do we want? There are contrasting ways in which to address the gender equality. A, equality through sameness. Equality, equal opportunities, and equal treatment. It highlights the necessity to include women into a world from which they have been typically excluded. But it can be a problem if it means trying to get women to be more like men. What kind of men, by the way? B, the difference approach. What does it mean? This approach says that women and men bring different contributions to society, and gender equality means valuing these contributions equally. But it can be a problem if it reinforces existing gender stereotypes and the current organization of labor and care. We will have occupations only for women and occupations only for men. Seems like a real trap again. C, the transformation of gender relations. Rather than having to choose between the sameness and difference approach, a new standard for both women and men is created, moving beyond gender and creating a better society for all individuals. In order to reconcile different approaches to gender equality, the Gender Equality Index adopts a pragmatic definition: equal share of assets and equal dignity and integrity between women and men. The Gender Equality Index synthesizes the complexity of gender equality in one single number. It is a multidimensional indicator which describes a complex reality by aggregating together different concepts in a meaningful way. The Gender Equality Index consists of 6 domains: work, money, knowledge, time, power, health. Complemented by 2 satellite domains, intersecting inequalities and violence. The index goes from score 1, maximal inequality, to score 100, perfect equality. Measuring gender gaps for both women and men in terms of levels of achievement, ensuring that a high score necessarily represents both low gender gaps and high level of achievement. We do not want everybody to be treated equally badly, but for all individuals to have the potential to realize themselves regardless of what they are. So where do we stand now? At EU level, we stand at 66.2. And the UK? Before looking at gender equality overall, let us show you why gender equality matters in each of the 6 core domains of this Gender Equality Index. Work. Women are more likely than men to have career interruptions, often because of household and care work. Women are also more likely to work on a part-time basis. Duration of working life is longer for men than for women. Segregation remains important, which means that women tend to work in different and lower paid sectors from men and are less likely to reach higher level positions. Of course, this has repercussions in terms of earnings and poverty. So let's look at the domain of money. Money. Women consistently earn less than men. There is already a gap when the gender pay gap is calculated on a hourly basis. It gets worse when we look at monthly earnings because women are more likely to work on a part-time basis. The difference gets even worse when we calculate the gender gap in pensions, where it amounts to 38%. Lower incomes mean higher risk of poverty for women in general, and in particular for lone mothers and older women. But if things end up so unequal in later life, does it start out so unequal? Let's look at the domain of knowledge. Knowledge. Women study more and achieve better results than their peers. Since 2007, there are more women as graduates of tertiary education than men. However, the fields into which women and men study remain very segregated. Women's representation is low in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Likewise, if we look at those sectors traditionally considered as feminine, such as nursing or early childhood education, the men who are present who can be very stigmatized. As a result, women's job opportunities do not reflect their level of education. Women are segregated in typically feminine occupations with important difficulties combining different activities, care, professional, and private activities. For this reason, let's look at the domain of time. Time. The division of time is made between three main activities: economic, care, and social activities. Maximizing opportunities to be able to sustain society through both caring and having time for one's life is of crucial importance. Women continue to perform the bulk of caring activities with extremely wide gender gaps between women and men in the time spent on caring and education of children. The difference is even worse for time spent on cooking and housework. As a result, men continue to be more likely than women to participate in sporting, cultural, and leisure activities on a regular basis. The division of time is also about having the opportunity to participate in social life and engage with decision making, where it becomes possible to make a change. So let's look at the domain of power. Power. In all areas of power and decision making, men are greatly overrepresented. In politics, men dominate in positions as ministers, members of parliament, and regional assemblies. This is also the case in social decision making, such as in research institutions, universities, the media, or sport organizations. The situation is worse in economic decision making, with women a small minority as members of company boards throughout the EU. Gender equality is about equal rights and equal outcomes, but it is also about bodily integrity. For this reason, let's have a look at the domain of health. Health. Women live longer than men in the EU, but sicker. This, combined with greater poverty, makes them much more vulnerable to violence. From a gender perspective, there are few differences between women and men in terms of access to health structures. This does not capture the fact that research and medicine does not fully cater to the specific needs of women. Women are still poorly represented in drug trials, which are used to prove the safety and efficacy of new drugs on the market. But men and women can react differently to medications, and what can be effective for one can be toxic for the other. One of the big absences in the Gender Equality Index, because of lack of consensus among EU countries, is the issue of reproductive health, contraception, and abortion. Is silence rather than debate really the solution? Violence. Until recently, EU comparable data on violence against women was absent. With the release of the European Agency for Fundamental Rights EU-wide survey on violence against women, a picture is starting to emerge. 1 woman in 3 in the EU has experienced physical and/or sexual violence since the age of 15. 1 woman in 3. Data show that violence affects over 80 million women in the EU. What is clear is that violence is mainly perpetrated by someone that is known and close in their environment rather than the stereotype of the random stranger. The perpetrator is most often a partner, ex-partner, family member, boss, or colleague. Domestic violence often does not manifest openly. It is subtle. It tends to follow a specific pattern over time called the cycle of violence. This cycle has different stages. The first is psychological violence, intimidation, and isolation. Secondly, there's economic violence. Then it goes to physical violence, and only in the end, there can be the killing of the woman. Comparisons between countries are problematic. It seems that there are higher levels of violence being disclosed in countries that have higher scores in the Gender Equality Index. But we need to be careful about the conclusions we draw from this. Is it that higher gender equality may lead to higher levels of violence? Or instead that higher levels of awareness and support make women feel more confident to report the experience of violence? Where will we stand in 2030? Despite 50 years of gender equality, we are nowhere near, and progress is slow. Comparing gender index scores from 2005 to 2015, there have been marginal improvements, getting from 62 in 2005 to 66.2 in the EU. In the UK, the score has even decreased from 2005 to 2012. Progress needs to increase its pace. An index is just a number. And this number in itself says absolutely everything about gender equality. But at the same time, it says absolutely nothing until it is used with the purpose to open up a space for reflection, discussion, and action. That's it.